Right. Welcome everyone to the Bidders Conference for the 21st Century Community Learning Center Grant, or we often just call it the 21st Century Grant. I'm Camille Sheep. I oversee this grant program. And the purpose of this meeting is to go over, it's not a requirement to attend this meeting or virtually attend this meeting to apply for the grant, but it really is an opportunity to go through what is the grant program about, what information is needed in the application, answer any questions you may have. So it's not a requirement to attend this. It really is an opportunity for you as applicants to review the information, ask any questions you have. You can also ask questions outside of this. So we're going to get started with our meeting today. And again, this funding would be for next school year, the 2020-21 school year. So the typical cycle is you apply in the spring and then hopefully you're awarded by July 1, but we'll go into more details about that. I just want to thank everyone for being able to participate. I know these are very trying and uncertain times, but all of you in some way are working to support our students and families. So we wanted to continue with providing you information about this grant opportunity. Things might change as we come. The timeline might change and need to be adjusted due to the current crisis much of the world is experiencing. So we will adapt, and I will do my best to keep you updated on that. So with all of the things going on in the world, we've all transitioned to online meetings, webinars, video conferences. So just a reminder, as many of you have already done this, please mute yourself. It's helpful. It prevents any feedback or noise. I know we've all been there where you just press the wrong button or you don't do it soon enough, and that's okay. We know we're going to have some bumps. It's not always perfect. Sometimes technology, unfortunately, fails, but we'll bring it back up. If you have questions, please submit them in the chat box. I think the easiest thing will be to go through the information first. Maybe I'll answer your questions, but if you have a burning question, please submit it in the chat box and we will get to your question. If I don't get to it during the time with our online meeting, absolutely I'll follow up. I'll also have a log of all the questions and send my responses. If you do run into technical issues, as we often do when we're using technology that we don't use very often, but now it's become part of our daily life, you can email Becky Peters. She can help you, and she's also building questions. So she is a resource if you're having technical problems, and just keep in mind that this is being recorded. So if anything does come up, we will be able to, you'll have the recording, or I can do another version of it, or we can have a phone call. So you'll get all your questions answered. And if you haven't already done so, if you could fill out the 21st Century Bidders Conference RSVP, since we don't have an official sign-in, I'm going to use this as our sign-in. So if you can see here, this is what it looks like. And some of you might have already completed this. That is the letter of intent. So this RSVP just helps me get your contact information so you can get the updates regarding this grant competition. So as I said, I'm Camille Sheik. I oversee this grant program. I also closely work with Robert Palmer. He's my partner in crime. He supports the state after-school grant programs. Tammy Long and Sandra Grant are also part of our fiscal compliance team for our federal programs and related state initiatives team. Quite a mouthful. So Tammy and Sandy work closely with the title program. So Title I, Title III, things like that. So we all work together. And so here's my contact information. If you have questions, you can always call me or we can set up an online conference together. So in light of everything that's going on, I just want to share this great success story about a student who was able to collect all of these masks. I have some wonderful colleagues who will share these inspiring stories to bring, there's a lot of darkness in the world, so bringing some lightness. But the second grader, this 7-year-old boy, collected over 6,000 masks for hospital staff in Virginia. So he's able to do this. He had been in the hospital himself for some other health issues. His sister has some health issues. But I think this demonstrates how innovative we often look to our adults to be innovative, and we forget how innovative our students and families are with helping the current pandemic situation we're all facing in the world. So I just wanted to highlight a little bit of positivity going on and how important after school programs are, summer programs are, even though they're going to look a little bit differently moving forward as we all wade through the unknown, that these programs are still important and our students are incredible innovators, and we really need to bring them in to the conversations when we talk about combating this pandemic that we're all experiencing. So I just wanted to highlight that story. And if you click on the link in your PDF version of the PowerPoint, you can find out more information about what this young man has done and his incredible contribution. So wanted to share that. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, this timeline and process might be adjusted due to the current pandemic we're all undergoing. So I'll keep you updated. That's why it's really helpful if I have your contact information, so I can keep you, so you can know what's going on and there's no confusion about what with the funding and what needs to be done. So we're here to learn about the 21st Century Grant. So this is a federal grant. It comes from the Department of Education. It is the title number is Title 4B, and it really is focused on creating those opportunities for school districts, charter schools, community-based, faith-based organizations to serve their students outside of regular school hours, coordinating still with the regular school day at schools, community centers that are at least 40% or higher poverty rate. So really the focus areas are academic achievement, alignment with the school day, providing these activities that will complement and reinforce the regular academic program, and also connecting with the families and giving them opportunities for literacy, related education development, taking family engagement to more than just having pizza nights, but what kind of information can you provide for these families so they can support their students academically, socially, emotionally. So those are the focus areas. And so we have, as a state, we have specific goals and indicators, and these are listed on page 44 of the grant application document. So I will show you that now. These are really important to consider as you're developing your application, developing your needs assessment. Really look to these state goals and performance indicators to say, are the activities we're developing, are they fitting into this? Are they, supporting academic achievement? Are they aligned with the school day? Are they still including enrichment and support activities? Because after school programs, summer programs, we can't just do 24/7 academics. We have to have project-based learning, experiential learnings, such as bringing in technology, music, recreation, having that connection with the community. No two programs are going to be the same. After school program in Price, Utah is going to look very different from one in downtown Salt Lake. So considering the community in that, and also supporting families and what did the families in the specific community you're serving need. So please look at these. They're at the end of the application when you're developing your responses, when you're developing your goals, when you're looking at how are we going to support students and families. Please review these and take these into account. So now I'm going to turn the time over. I just wanted to provide a broad overview before we get more in depth. I'm going to turn the time over to Zach Christensen, who is our Director of Purchasing and Contracts, to talk more about that side of things, the protest process for a competitive grant, and he's going to speak, so I will be unmuting him. Pardon me for one moment. So he's going to give us some information regarding that, and I will unmute him now.
All right, thank you, Camille.
Oh, you're already unmuted, great.
Fantastic, okay. So as Camille said, this is the competitive grant, and we don't have a grant code here in Utah. So we are going to be using the protest section out of the Utah Public Procurement Code. And so I just wanted to go through and kind of explain what you can expect and kind of what those requirements are. So if anybody would like to look up the section on protests for the procurement code, it is Utah Code 63G-6A, Part 16. So with that, a protest needs to be filed by someone who has standing and has been aggrieved in connection with the process. So that just means that to have standing, you have to be a participant in there, and you have to have had some kind of negative treatment or not be considered for an award. You'd have to meet that criteria before you can protest. If you don't respond to the grant, then you wouldn't have that standing and you wouldn't be able to protest. So you need to file your protest timely. And so that means if there's a question or a problem with the grant application, if you feel that the criteria or what's being asked is too restrictive, or it's not competitive, or it's something that needed to be changed, in order to protest that, you have to do it before the grant closes. If you try to protest afterwards, the procurement code says that that is a late protest and it can't be considered. So if you have questions, please reach out to Camille. She will be happy to answer those questions. And if there is a problem, then we can address that before the grant closes or make any changes or updates that need to be happened so that hopefully we don't have any protests. So the timeline to submit a protest is you have 7 days after the day in which you have knowledge or constructive knowledge giving rise to the grant to the protest. So that means if there's a problem and you're notified that you aren't awarded a grant and you feel that there was some kind of error, either some kind of scoring or some of your submission was not considered or some other grounds for that protest, you would have to protest that within 7 days that you were notified of that. You can't wait several weeks and then protest. That would become an untimely protest, and that protest wouldn't be considered. So far, is everyone okay? Any questions so far? Fantastic. Okay. So as we are going on with your protest, you have to include your contact information so that we are able to contact you and let you know the decision to protest. And with your protest, you have to include facts and evidence that, if true, would establish either a violation of the protest, that something was amiss with either the grant application, or that the process was flawed, or that there was some kind of bias by the evaluation committee members, some ground that would be a legitimate reason to make that protest. You'd have to have facts and evidence to support that. You can't just have a unsubstantiated claim. As Camille indicated, or it's on the screen, I have my law degree, and this is a lot different from a legal case where you just have to say, you know, I have a case and we'll figure out the details later. You have to provide those details up front with your protest. So if you think there's a problem, make sure you have enough time to get those facts and evidence to support your protest before that timeline has run out. So with your protest, you cannot claim that you should have just received more points or that somebody else should have received lower points, once again, without having some facts and evidence to support why your grant application was incorrectly scored. Okay, and with that, the process of what we would do once we receive a protest, just so that everyone is fully aware, I would help Camille with the protest officer duties, and we would review the information. And in that case, if we determined that additional information was needed, we would either ask for that information or we could hold a hearing to determine if there were additional facts and evidence that needed to be resolved to resolve the protest. And with that, that hearing, it would not comply with the federal or the Utah rules of evidence. It's an administrative hearing, and so if we did hold that, it would just be recorded, and we would be much less formal than a court type hearing. We would take all of that information, consider the grant application, the protest, responses, anything else, and then we would issue a decision within 30 days from that protest from the time it was received. And then we would either uphold your protest, saying that you were correct, that there was something that was amiss and that something needed to be rectified, or then the protest would not be upheld, which would mean that there was not sufficient grounds or there was not an identified error or problem that would require that kind of review. So those are the general requirements in the procurement code about protests that we would follow. Does anybody have any questions, or can I provide any additional information regarding the protest process? Okay.
Great, thank you, Zach. And if any questions come up after you've processed all the information, I'll send an updated PDF of the PowerPoint with Zach's email, and you can also kind of route your questions through me, and I can pass them on to Zach for that if questions about protest. All right, well, thank you so much, Zach, and we'll keep you updated.
Thank you very much. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye. So getting back into the grant competition for this school year, some basics around the 21st Century Grant is it's a 5-year grant. And we'll talk more about how the cycles work. I believe Sandra Grant had some additional information she wanted to provide, but this is the amount of total funding. The funding would hopefully flow through July 1. And all of the proposed program sites, so if it's a school site, if it's a community center, they all have to be at 40% or more of that poverty rate. Additionally, the minimum amount for an application is $100,000. The maximum is $400,000, and these are for new applications. So a new group of program sites, new program goals. I'm going to talk, and Sandra Grant will talk more about what's a new application versus a reapplication. And there can be no more than 6 program sites included in one application. So this is the overview. Again, it's a 5-year grant cycle. The minimum award is $100,000 for new grants. This grant does have a reduction, so you'll receive up to 75% of your total annual amount in year 4. In year 5, it reduces to 50%, but still agreeing with partners to maintain the same level of service. So here's an example of that step down process for the new application. You see, you get the same amount for the first 3 years. That's an annual amount. And then in year 4, you get 25% less. So with $100,000, that's a really easy number. You'd get $75,000 in year 4. And by year 5, that would be by $50,000. So that's for new applications. This is for reapplications. These are only for organizations currently receiving the 21st Century Grant. So if you've never received this grant before. This doesn't necessarily apply to you. This is for organizations currently receiving the 21st Century Grant, and this would be to continue project goals and outcomes with the same program sites, and this would have to be a project that is going to end this school year, and you'd get the same amount you received your 5-year annual amount, so year 5, however much you were getting, and then you would still have the reduction in year 4 and 5. Sandy, do you have any additional information you want to share about the reapplication? Well, if maybe Sandy will have additional information as we go. Oh, Sandy?
Am I there now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. One of the things that's confusing about the reapplication is that if you had a grant ended this year, okay, this was your 5th year, it's over, you can do a reapplication for those same programs, same sites, all of that, but it must be the same amount as in your 5th year. So if you were getting, let's say, $150,000 in the original grant, then the reapplication can only be half of that. So the $75,000 and goes on. So be really how you do that one, because it can only be that 50% of the original grant. Questions? Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Sandy. This is our current timeline. So the application, the documents were shared last week. Today we are having our bidders conference. There is a required letter of intent that is due by the 17th, and that is just a Google form, and I'll show you that once we get into the grant submission details. You must submit that required letter of intent for your application to be considered. Right now, we're having a due date of May 20th, and that would be in the Utah grant system. So as we go throughout the online meeting, we'll discuss that further, and then we'll have a grant review period of almost a month, and then hopefully getting award notification out at the end of June. This is the proposed timeline. It is possible to change, but we did want you to have the application documents to have this bidders conference so you can have information, get your questions answered for now. So that's our timeline. With the grant scoring and review process, there is a rubric. I will send that out next week. And that rubric is what our grant evaluators use to score all of the applications. So all applications are read 4 to 5 times by a group of highly qualified reviewers who are screened that they have experience. They receive an in-depth training similar to what you're receiving today on what this grant program is about and the application. Once that happens, I will initially notify people of if they've been awarded or if they have not been awarded. But if you are awarded funding, that funding will come through an official award center in the Utah Grants Management System. That is the system our office uses to manage all of the application process, the award process. If you do receive funding, the reimbursement process, and additionally monitoring will also eventually be added in there. So that is our system. That's our grants management system. And you can request the evaluation rubrics. Maybe if you don't get funded, or if you do get funded, you can request those evaluation rubrics and notes. So I'm going to dive into essentially, if you are awarded, these are your responsibilities. I think it's important to know everything involved before you start your application process. So these are responsibilities, requirements. We do have an annual grant orientation that you need to attend important information is shared there. This is a federal grant, so time and effort documentation is required. And that's what's during the annual grant orientation we provide that information for organizations who are new to this kind of funding, and also a refresher for organizations who have received it in the past. And everyone must provide time and effort documentation, not just local education agencies, which refers to school districts and charter schools, but if you are a community-based organization, you do need to provide that time and effort documentation. You need to follow the allowable and unallowable expense guidelines, and I have a list of those. So as you're developing your budget, you can understand what you could cover versus what should not be included. A major thing with any federal grants is entertainment expenses. With out-of-school time programs, we often dance on that line between what is educational, considered academic enrichment versus what is entertainment. So Lagoon would be considered entertainment, but perhaps going to the Natural History Museum with and having a lesson planned out about that could be considered an allowable expense. So I'll go into more details there. And if Sandy and Tammy have anything, it's also important that you will collect data on student achievement and progress towards program goals, as well as having a periodic program evaluation. This grant is through the Department of Education, so there is a focus on student achievement, as well as the goals and outcomes you specified in your grant application. That's how we will, when we come to visit you to monitor, we'll ask about that. And periodic program evaluation is key in establishing any kind of quality education program. You need to know, are these activities hitting what we said in our application, or do we need to revise them? How are staff doing? How are staff implementing that? So periodic program evaluation is very important. I'll go into a sliding fee scale and what that means, but really these programs are targeted towards families and students from low-income backgrounds. They need to be accessible. There needs to be an advertised free option for those students eligible for free lunch. We'll go into what the 21 APR reporting system is. That's what we use to provide information to Congress about, should we keep funding this grant program? Are they meeting their overall grant outcomes? You'll submit an application each year if you are funded. It won't go through that competitive review process, but it will be an update on, okay, this is what we're still meeting our goals and outcomes, or, we've had to change things due to certain circumstances. So it is an application, but it doesn't necessarily go through a review process. We do an internal review, but it's an update on how you're meeting your goals and outcomes. Additionally, it's important to participate in technical assistance with the Utah After School Network. Ben Trentleman is going to talk in a bit and more about what they do, but they use both the quality tool, which is a self-assessment, and an observation tool, and Ben Trentleman will discuss that further. And then participate in any federal and state evaluations. We are in the works of developing an overall state evaluation for this grant program. And so if you are a funded program, then your participation would be very important in that. And then going on with the periodic evaluation, it's important to report your progress to your community, to your school community, to your families, to your key partners, and continue to seek their support, because as Sandy mentioned, all of the grant funding has reductions, whether it's a new application or the reapplication. You will have that reduction in funding, and you still have to maintain the same level of service, and that's where your community partners become key. So with program fees, to even charge fees for the program, to collect what we call program income, you must, and this is if you are funded, you must submit a waiver, a request for approval that you would be doing that. And you must have, when you're designing your program and considering your application, you must have a sliding fee scale, and there has to be an advertised free option for students and families who qualify for fee waivers under the school local education agency fee waiver policies. So this link here is information about school fees. They have a great a variety of resources for you if you're confused about this, but these programs need to be accessible to all students, especially those students who they are targeted towards. So there can't be excessive fees to participate in these out-of-school time programs. So if you click on the link, you can visit their website. They have a nice video that they developed that you can watch if you have questions about this. But the focus when you're developing your program should be on how do I make these programs accessible and having that free options for students who qualify. So evidence-based practices with all of the title programs, it's important that you're doing things because they're based on evidence, that there's based on research, you're using best practices. These are some resources to look into some programs. So maybe you want something for prevention and you're working with English learners. You could go to one of these sites and get some resources to include in your program so that you're using evidence-based practices throughout your program so you have a strong implementation so you can get to your goals and outcomes of the grant. So I talked a bit about the evaluation process that is a requirement for the 21st Century Grant. It must be, it's periodic, so that's left up to you, but with the results, you have to use those to improve, strengthen your program, and really dial into those performance measures. I often see grant applications that are funded that they have very lofty goals, but really, you know, maybe you need a couple months of programming to refine those performance measures. So to really target into who you're serving and the services that you're providing for them. And it's important to share those with your community partners, with the public, especially with your school community, with your teachers, your principals, and your family, and other community partners. So you must list some kind of evaluation process, and this could be internal, or funding can be used to have someone external help you. Maybe you want them to develop some family surveys or teacher surveys around the program. This can be internal or external. So I mentioned you have to provide data on the student achievement, So the 21 APR system, that's our federal reporting system. This is used by Congress to report on the outcomes of the grant. Congress determines the grant funding for many of the title programs. The president will propose what his or her vision is, but that's a proposal. It's essentially Congress who funds these programs. So what we do in Utah is we use state assessment data. So Acadience, Dibbles, RISE, and we also use teacher reports. So it's important to understand that you'll have to report on that information at the end of each year. And so having a good, if you're a school or a community-based organization, really looking into see, is this data we could collect? Do we need to get different permissions? What does that look like? So please, if you have questions about, I'm not sure we'll be able to get this data, I don't think we'll be able to get state assessment data, and it would be state assessment data for students who are regularly participating in the program, and it is just aggregate, but if you are an interested organization and not sure if you could get this data, please contact me and we can work with our data privacy team here at the Utah State Board of Education to get you that information and maybe have someone work with your school or your community-based organization so you would get that information. Family engagement is a really key component to this federal funding for out-of-school time programming. Quality family engagement is especially important. Again, designing those activities based on what is the need of your community. How can you support them? What do you need? What's going to be beneficial to them? I understand that food brings lots of people together, but beyond that, what are you doing so they'll come back, that they're coming and you're building those key relationships with them so they trust you and your after school staff and you're working with the school, that you're working with the teachers, that they know you're developing that trusting relationship, that so they feel when they go to your school or your community-based program that they can trust you and your staff. So Dr. Karen Mapp out of Harvard has this dual capacity framework. So you can go to this link right here and have this go through, and I apologize, I know this is quite small, but it really talks about what are some of the different challenges and some things you can do to shift what you're doing with your family engagement to make it more of a partnership. So not just about what you're doing for families, but creating those key relationships with your family community. So this is a great resource to review as you're looking at your question in regards to family engagement for this after school program funding. So with allowable and unallowable costs, this is a breakdown of each. Staff costs, obviously that's a big portion of it. Any supplies and materials and equipment, professional development and training, field trips that have that direct link to academic achievement and your program goals and outcomes. We really recommend with your food costs, because those can be a big part of your budget, that you try to coordinate with child nutrition at the Utah State Board of Education to participate in a reimbursement program. And we're really pushing for healthy snacks and dinners, and some allowable, no capital expenses, no taxes, anything that could be considered entertainment. We don't allow food for meetings or trainings, no candy or soda, incentives, toys, gift cards, or gaming system. And t-shirts that those do require pre-approval, and t-shirts that are approved must be connected to the safety of students. So as you're developing your budget, you'll need to consider these things and be really intentional. And what do you need to run a high quality program that fits into these parameters of what is allowable versus unallowable? Sandy, do you have anything to add about the allowable and unallowable costs when applicants are developing their application?
Not right now, but the big thing is that you get your things pre-approved. If you have any question at all, if you get it pre-approved, then your thing goes through quite fast. It's easier. And we know ahead of time what you're going to do and why you're going to do it.
Great. Thanks, Sandy. So this is some due dates about some important parts of the grant requirements for 21st century. You see the 21 APR system. You're typically reporting after the school year, but it's important that during the school year that you're still collecting all of that information. If you have any questions or concerns about collecting student achievement data, reach out to me and I can put you in contact with the data privacy team. Whitney Phillips has really helped us better understand the perspective of local education agencies and how we can all work together. So this just lays out the information regarding requirements. Ben Trentleman from Utah After School Network, they're our contracted technical assistance provider, and they really lead out on the quality improvement efforts in coordination with our office as well as Department of Workforce Services Office of Child Care. We do monitor on a risk, based on risk. So there is a form that I can share with everyone, but it is risk-based monitoring, on-site visits. So this is all the kind of a year at a glance about the different information and when it typically happens. So this is a link to the child nutrition program information. Again, please check this out about potentially being on a reimbursement program. They can help you. They can do snacks, they can do dinners, they can do super snack. It depends on your free and reduced price lunch rates, but they can provide you with information about that. So, potentially I know their child nutrition program is working very closely with all of our providers, school providers and community-based organizations, schools on dismissal. So you could write it into your budget, but then, make a note that when things calm down, reaching out to them and looking into this process for getting reimbursement for snacks or dinner. Also, adult education information. It's important to let your parents know. Some of them might not have their high school diploma or whatever it is, but trying to connect them. And this wouldn't be something perhaps all families need, but really connect them with these opportunities. If it's free to get your GED, and this is connected with school districts, so they have classes for free that they can take to get their GED. So, check this out. There's a whole directory based on whatever community you're in. Definitely check this out and consider this when you're developing your family engagement strategies. So now Ben Trentleman from the Utah After School Network is going to talk a little bit more about how they work with programs to improve the quality of their program, because all programs are doing great work. We all can be better. So Ben is going to talk to that.
All right, thank you, Camille. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all virtually. It's a nice change for all of us, I guess. I'm Ben Trentleman. I'm the Director of Operations with the Utah After School Network, where we provide really 3 tiers of support for after-school programs. In that, the first one is that we provide technical assistance and support to programs. So if you receive the 21st Community Learning Centers grant, that basically gives you all of resources and services free of charge. That's all included with your funding. So it's like getting a new car and having service included in that free of charge for a year, which is nice. We are your after school service department. So what that means is we are able to come into programs to provide you with external quality assessment tools, such as our program quality self-assessment tool. That's something that opens up in the fall, and then you complete that independently with your team and your programs. And you submit that information to us, and then we use that information together to put together goals for your programs. We are also able to come into programs to provide you with a external observation. To do that, we do the school age and youth program quality assessment tools, and that is something that comes from the Weikart Center out of Michigan. And basically what we are looking for with those tools are how your engagement looks in the relationships between staff and youth in your programs. There's also some observations around the physical space that you're in, making sure that it's accommodating, that it's appropriate for the youth that you're serving, that it's safe, and all those lines. So basically, we look at all of that data, your own goals, the external observation, your internal observations, and things like that. And then we're able to put together an action plan with you. And that's the information we use to help you establish goals and move forward throughout the year with your own quality improvement efforts. So we're available anytime for you. Your program will be assigned an school time specialist. That's our team of experts in after school that we employ at UAN. And basically, they're your ongoing support for everything you're doing. In addition to our technical assistance, we do have professional learning opportunities that are available to you as well. So we have the Jump Start Conference that happens in November every year. That's a statewide after-school professionals conference where we have over 700 or so individuals that come and attend that. And we have a number of different workshops and breakouts on things that pertain to after-school programming, like behavior management, administrative work, working with trauma-informed care, and everything along those lines. We also have the Recharge Conference. That's one that happens in February every year. We do one down in southern Utah, typically in St. George. Last year we did it in Cedar City. And we also have one that we do in northern Utah. Again, those are widely attended. They focus on really everything that should fit into our after-school wheelhouse and making sure that your provider, that as providers, you're equipped with everything that you need. We also have other small workshops that we do, such as the Behavior Management Institute. This focuses specifically on developing a behavior management protocol and policies for your program. That's very nice, and it gives you a lot of great tools the emphasis there is on attending that as a team and learning all together as a team so you can implement these strategies and be a unified force as you're developing everything that you are doing in your programs. We also have a e-learning institute. This is available on our website. That's an online learning platform that you can sign up for. You can actually pay per module to utilize those. That's one of the only resources that we're able to offer that unfortunately is not a free resource, but paying per module, it's very affordable. This is something that's nice for programs that are more rural or remote. It's also very helpful for year-round onboarding. Retention is something that can be a challenge for our programs. So you may find yourself doing, big staff orientation in the fall or the summer when you onboard everybody, and then needing to onboard additional staff throughout the year. This is nice because you can sign up for it. You can assign specific modules to your team, and they can work on those independently to make sure that they have all a basic understanding of after-school culture, best practices, and things along those lines. Our third big bucket is that we are also an advocacy organization. So a lot of the work that we do is to inform our policy work in helping to educate local political leaders as well as our state and federal leaders in why these after-school programs are important. And that's been particularly important over the last few years as we've been supporting the 21st Community Learning Center grants and everything that this funding source does for programs. So there are a few things that we collect from you, such as our program information form that will actually be opening up very soon. That's something that every grantee will complete. That basically just collects program information, demographic information, who you're serving, when you're open, what types of activities you're doing, things along those lines. Something that's really important because that's information that we share out to anyone that we can to talk about the benefits of these programs and everything along those lines. And so basically think of UAN as your one stop for any after school needs that you may have. We're very nimble and flexible. If we find ourselves in, the midst of a worldwide pandemic or something along those lines, we UAN are prepared to respond with other online learning opportunities, additional technical assistance and things along those lines. Hopefully this isn't something that we're all having to do again in the near future here. Does anyone have any questions about UAN and the services that we offer? What I would say is that you're welcome to reach out to us. You can actually find our website, utahafterschool.org. You can also email us at 801, sorry, I'm giving you my phone number. You can email us at info@utahafterschool.org. But I'd encourage you to just check out all the different resources we have on our website. We've got a searchable resource library there. We have all of our staff contacts. We have listening to various curriculums and things along those lines, as well as a job board where you can post positions that you're hiring for in your program, a blog that we're updating regularly. Oh, one other note on that job board is that we've actually tweaked it in the last year to accommodate your volunteer needs as well. So if you're looking for volunteers or if you're hiring for your program, you can post any of those positions to our website, and we're happy to help promote that for you and to help you get in touch with any potential applicants or volunteers for your program. So that's UAN in a nutshell. Please reach out if you have any questions, and I look forward to hearing from you and hopefully working with you in the next year.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you.
So just diving into the design of your 21st Century Grant Plan. So this is a practitioner's guide about the Southwest Educational Development Laboratory in coordination with the Mott Foundation, who works closely with a lot of the statewide after-school networks and different national after-school organizations. They put out this guide for how to build and manage quality after-school programs. I would definitely check that out when you're in the writing phases of your application. And so some things to consider, something I think is one of the most important parts of a grant application, any grant application, is your needs assessment. So you know about the grant, you know what it can support, it's very targeted for academic enrichment, family engagement, outside of the regular school day, but what is the need of your community What is the need of the school or the community center you're trying to serve? What data shows that need? Have you looked at your data? Have you done focus groups or surveys or whatever that looks like? But what is the need for that particular community, and how can you design and implement programming that is going to support that need? And these are some resources you could consider. Teachers play a key role. I know it's often hard for teachers to work in before school, after school, or summer programs, but getting their input, maybe they can advise you as part of the process. Maybe they can, maybe work an hour or so, whatever it is, and maybe they have an insight into what kind of programming should be designed and implemented. Also looking at your physical space, where you are operating in a school-based site, could you possibly run in the gym, or are some teachers willing to share their space with you? And then looking at your key partners, so local businesses, different services around the community, your health department, your social services, your local Department of Workforce Services, recreation programs, colleges and universities. These can all be key partners in helping you design and implement a very high quality program. And it's going to look a little bit different in each community, depending on what your needs are, depending on the partners you have. But these are some things to consider. Local businesses, they can help with that financial support or in-kind contributions, whatever it is. Connecting with people at your district adult education programs, your English learner programs, and then what are your local volunteer sources who could help with that. So consider your available resources and what that will look like and what makes the most sense for the proposal and what's going to support your goals and your outcomes. And then looking at these 4 different areas, so your program organization, how are you organized? Where are you pulling staff from? What programming looks like? How are you getting your staff quality professional development and training? Considering those things. And then obviously academic programming is a key component, focus area for the grant, but it can't just be, having kids do tutoring all day or having students do, worksheets. Is that really going to be engaging and high quality programming? Is that going to support them in achieving better outcomes or building better relationships? So really look at your academic programming practices and trying to align with the school day, but also incorporating overall best practices for after school and what that looks like, considering project-based learning, considering experiential learning, high quality curriculum and resources. We talked about using evidence-based resources to design an engaging program. And then also, what are those supportive relationships you're creating? I think if one of the most important things I've been learning throughout this crisis that we're all undergoing is the importance of relationships. And relationships can really make or break a program. And developing, nurturing, supportive relationships between staff and supervisor, between students and the staff, that is really key. So how do you support everyone? So when it comes down to it, you're building relationships. That's one of the highest indicators of quality, as well as achieving your program outcomes. So when you're developing your grant application, it's easy to say, well, I want to change everything and make sure everyone's reading on grade level and making sure all of my high school students are getting a 30 on the ACT. But are those realistic for the program? Yes, those are great outcomes to have, but how could we break that down and maybe you support more high school students involved in tutoring or mentoring around preparing for the ACT, or you're supporting evidence-based curriculum being used to improve reading scores, and you have a tool to kind of monitor and track that you've worked with the school day. So being really careful when you craft these outcomes, what is having SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound, because that is how we will monitor. And we know, adjustments have to be made, but really presenting realistic program outcomes when you're designing that, and also just realistic who would attend the program. And I often see current grantees, applicants who say, we're going to serve 400 students, and maybe that's just not plausible in that certain community. But really dialing in your needs assessment, how you're designing the program, and what those SMART goals and outcomes are is important when considering the application for this grant. And I know there were some questions. I see them pop up on my screen, but yes, I will share the slides and all of this information with anyone who's participated in this webinar, and trying to get it out to as many people as possible. If you sign that RSVP, it's very helpful. And also Ben said that Utah After School Network is doing a professional development training today online for anyone who wants to participate. But you'll need to sign up for their newsletter on the Utah After School Network site to receive those professional development resources and information. So please go check out their website. It's a great resource to review as you are developing your application. So again, these are just some resources. We talked about this CEDL. If you have more specific questions about the overall federal grant program, that's 21st Century, check that out here. U for Youth, that's the Department of Education 21st Century resource for professional development, also an excellent resource to check out. And then we discussed Utah After School Network. So now this is the portion where we're going to go over the specifics of, well, how do I submit my application? How does this all work? And what's in the application and what's needed? So we're going to go through the application process and then review the grant application documents with our last remaining hour or so. And then we'll have time to go through any questions that have come up that haven't already been answered. So Utah Grant System, this is what we use to manage application through monitoring for any of our grants in our office. It's the Utah Grant System. It looks like this. So this is what you'll log into once all of the information is not yet in Utah Grants. We are waiting on for local education agencies, school districts, and charter schools. We are waiting on their indirect cost rates. That typically happens this first week of April. So we're kind of waiting on that. That's why we wanted to provide you with the application documents, but you will submit everything in Utah Grants. So you have time to first work on, review the documents, and then you'll submit everything in Utah Grants along with the budget narrative. But we have this delay because the negotiation and indirect cost rates is still happening. And so that is why we have this two-pronged approach. So to apply for the grant, again, this is not a condition that you need to, this bidders conference is really for you as applicants to get a better understanding of this grant program and the application process. It's not a requirement. This is recorded. So say you missed it or you had to duck out early, you can always go back to this is a resource for you, but you are required to do a letter of intent. And this is done on a Google form. It's due by April 17th. And it looks like this. So you'll just say, please submit something. This is really helpful by the 17th. Maybe some of your program sites will change before then, but please submit this letter of intent. And when I send all the emails out, this is in the application, but I will kind of call it out on its own week. So as I mentioned, you'll submit everything in Utah Grants. And once you get into Utah Grants, this is a summary of all the information you'll need. So you'll do a grant budget in the Utah Grant System. So you'll say, I'm applying for $100,000, $60,000 is going to staff, $10,000 is going to supplies, This is what it's going to look like. So you'll do that in Utah Grants, and you can also include budget narrative details. The more, the better with that. But you can start designing what you want your grant budget to be right now. And I'll email out after this meeting sometime this week. I'll email out what the budget categories are in the budget. Additionally, you'll have your grant application question. So that's a PDF form fill you received. You'll have your gap analysis form. That's an Excel form. You'll need to have partnership letters. Now you can have one letter from the school district signed by the superintendent saying, you know, we support the program. We have all of the schools might have their own, might have to follow a specific format. So, but you can have a letter from the school district that lists all of the schools and or saying, you know, that's why we have all of the letters that look the same. So you do need those partnership letters from the district or the school. You'll have to have documentation to support that all of the program sites are at 40% or more of the poverty rate. And then any priority point documentation, and this could include Excel documents, PDF, scanned Word documents, and we'll go into more details about this in just a bit. But please remember that in Utah Grants, don't wait until the last minute to submit, because it's a two-step approval process. So once the application, everything is loaded in Utah Grants, someone will go and click on the link, and they will be the creator of the grant. So the first person who essentially claims this application is the creator. And if you need to change that, or someone accidentally grabbed it because they thought it was something else, let us know. We can change that. But essentially, you would be the creator. And so you would be the one who could make all the edits, do all the things along with your team. So the creator will complete the application, and then they will send it to the organization's internal approver, who will review, and then they will actually submit to USBE by the deadline. So that is a two-step process. It's not just one person. So understanding now, some things would be to see if you have access to Utah Grants. I know some organizations don't yet have access, and we can absolutely get you registered as an organization in Utah Grants. Please email me if you've never been in Utah Grants and your organization is not in there. But it's important that if you are going to be the creator of the application, you have a Utah Grants login. And so you'll need to contact your organization. If your organization is already using Utah Grants, but say you are the one who would be developing this and you need to be a creator, you need to request their approval to add you so you can be a creator if that's the decision they make regarding who will create the application. But please keep this in mind, this deadline, what the deadline is when you're developing your timeline for submission. Submitting early is always recommended, but just, you know, something happens. Technology is not perfect. Maybe something goes down or your internet goes down. It always seems like it rains when applications are due. No, there cannot be more than one creator. There can only be one single creator. That's the first person who adds that application to their queue, if you will. So please work this out. I can answer additional questions you have about this process, and reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns about Utah Grants. You need an organization profile, or you need to know who you should contact in your organization. So as I said, the first person to start Utah Grants is a creator and the only person who can edit. That is just how the system works. So when everything is loaded into Utah Grants and you have your creator and you have your timeline set up for final approval, and you know who your internal approver is, school districts and charter schools, when doing their budget, they use the restricted indirect cost rate that will automatically load. If you're a community-based organization and you would like an indirect cost rate, or you have one to apply, please contact me so we can work that out now in terms of getting that loaded in the system. So contact me regarding that. You'll attach these documents as we discussed, and it's that two-step approval process. So the creator, and only one person is ever the creator, will submit it to one of the organization's internal approvers. And school districts, charter schools, it's usually the business administrator who is an internal approver. That's typical. With community-based organizations, it might be the executive director, so it just varies. And I will I will follow up on the question around seeing successful applications from previous years. I'll connect with Zach Christensen regarding that question. So this is your checklist. So maybe, this is a lot of information to digest. Have this, maybe print this out, have this as kind of a check system that you have all of this when you're ready to submit all of the information that we've talked about. So before we get into the actual grant application and I open the grant application document, I just want to, there is a question in the grant application regarding inclusion. And these are some resources, sorry for the quick scrolling, but these are some resources that Natay Deidre, and she's a coordinator in special education section for the Utah State Board of Education. She put this together for the orientation for current 21st century grantees this previous summer. And it just includes some excellent details about how you should be including students with disabilities in your after school programs. It goes over the law. It goes over what this means, what you can, what you can't do. But these are just some great resources for you to consider. And also, we've had questions come up about this, inclusion and what does that mean? We've had this is this application submission checklist. Again, you'll have a copy of these slides for you to review so that you can go through as you're developing your application, but this is a submission checklist. So please consider these resources as you're developing your question around inclusion. And if you have specific questions, please contact Natay. She's the Student and Family Rights Coordinator, or Holly Bell. She's our Equity and Advocacy Specialist. They're great resources for when things come up. When you are in regular programming and you're just not sure, but they're great resources, so please utilize them. So now we're going to transition to reviewing the grant application documents, and I'm going to start with the PDF form fill, so all of the questions. So this is a PDF form fill. Please don't fill it out in internet, whatever your internet browser is. It's important to download it onto your computer to a specific file, because if you fill it out in an internet browser, it won't save any of your information. So this is the link to complete the RSVP form that helps us with getting information out, building a really strong list. So when there are updates or whatever comes along, you can get it quickly. This is a letter of intent form to complete. And then this is the link to Utah Grants. So this provides more details about the purpose of the grant program, so what activities could be funded. A lot of the information we've gone over today, the proposed timeline. So these are the program assurances. So please review these as you're going through. This is, if you are funded, this is what you say you will do. So these are important. Now, since it will be submitted in the Utah grant system, we don't need you to fill out the signature information. So please disregard the signatures for this. You don't need the signatures of this. Now is the time to reach out to your executive director, your principals, your superintendent about, if you're interested in applying for this grant. But you don't need the signatures. Your signatures will be in the when you're submitting. So that internal approver providing the review and then submitting to us is all we need. So basic organization information, what kind of application it is. And then for each of the program sites, you'll fill out this information. And it's important to note that all of the program sites must operate during the school year a minimum of 10 hours a week, 32 weeks during the school year. So you'll provide this information about, this is also good for you to consider in your needs assessments, and this information about what is the need in your community, what are the students you'll be serving, how will you target those students. So this is a program site information sheet. This is your partnership information. So instead of having multiple letters from all of your partners, you'll list your top 6 partners, and you'll just provide, what do they provide? So you won't have to submit lots of letters for partners. You'll only need your school district or principal letters, but this is where you'll provide those partnerships, whoever they are. And this private school consultation is for public schools to submit. I don't believe charter schools need to submit this. Sandy, do community-based organizations need to fill out this information? We'll get, oh, Sandy?
I would say no, because the community-based organizations do not have a direct boundary. So they're like a school. They cover large areas, which may encompass more than one district.
Okay. Thank you, Sandy. So this is only for our public districts. So, if you're from Cache District or Logan District, you would need to complete this. And if you're a charter school or a other type of community-based organizations, you just put NA, community organization or charter school. So this is alignment with whatever. So Deb, I'll follow up on your question. Sorry, they just quickly flash, but I will go through questions after we're done. Sometimes I can read them quick, but sometimes I can't. But I will get back to your question, Deb. So this is how you will align with whatever local education agency goals. So how you're going to support those goals with your out of school time programming. So this will be for the local education agency, so a school district or charter school that most of your students are attending, that there's been this joint planning, that you've connected with the principals, you've connected with the teachers, you've connected with whoever it is, so that you guys are in alignment with what you're going to do with the after school program. And then we get into the competitive priority. So it's an absolute priority, meaning that's a minimum requirement. If you're not at that 40% or more poverty rate, then unfortunately you're not eligible to apply for the grant. So you'll list your poverty rate, and you'll also provide documentation for that poverty rate. And then these are the competitive priority points. And each competitive priority point is worth 3 points for a total of 39 points each. So these are extra points that you can get. And some of them require documentation and some of them don't. So, submitting the plan with the local education agency and a public, private, or community organization, describe how that partnership works. That the plan was collaborated with community-based organizations, parents, and students. So you're reaching out to your community. Applicants who have never been awarded will get a point. No explanation needed. We have that information internally. And applicants who were not awarded the grant in the 2019-20 school year. So additionally, there's some priority points for operating more hours during the week and more weeks during the school year. Just explanation is required, but no additional documentation. It's key that you are consulting with a licensed teacher in the community that you're serving. So there is documentation required for that. How that works, a lot of programs in the past have submitted a chart showing how the supervised teacher would work with the staff at the organization and the program site. Program will offer a healthy snack. That's really important. That's something you can write into your grant budget, actually, but we do encourage you to connect with child nutrition. So if one of the schools, so these would apply to all of the proposed program sites. They all must meet these to receive the points. Now, these ones down here apply to only one of the proposed program sites. So if your school has been identified for comprehensive support and improvement or targeted support and improvement, I will send out a list, but you likely already know that. So list your program site here. Additionally, there's a priority point for if you operate in a rural county, and there's a map in the documentation information that we'll review. But if you feel strongly that your community is not identified as rural on that map, but that you are indeed rural, you can submit other documentation, census data, other things that would make a case for you to get this priority point. Serving students from 50% or more students from refugee backgrounds, that does require additional documentation. If you are at a school site that is more than 10% or more of intergenerational poverty, and that data will come straight from the annual IGP report. So you can click this link and go to these pages and search for your schools. And then there are priority points given for one of the sites if it's serving middle school, junior high, or high school, as well as a site offering pre-K or kindergarten programming. So those are the priority points. Some of them do require documentation, and that is listed towards the side. The ones up here are organization priority points and just require an explanation in the box. So now we get into the application questions. And so the needs assessment, again, use those different resources we've discussed in this meeting to really present data and make your case that this is why we need this program. This is why we've designed this program in this way. Then your project design. So what is your program going to look like? What evidence-based practices are you going to include? How are you going to recruit and target students? And really connecting with those specific Utah performance goals and indicators, and they are on page 44. I apologize for the misprint. So your project design, principles of effectiveness. So how are you knowing that these programs you're designing are working? How will you have that periodic evaluation process? What data will be collected around this to make sure you're doing what you said you were doing? And do some goals need to be adjusted as you go through, but really making sure that the program is impacting students and families that it was intended to. And then your program evaluation plan. So connecting back with our Utah performance goals and indicators, how are you going to create benchmarks that you can monitor this progress? Because you can't just do it all at once, but what are some things that you can check in throughout to make sure that you're on track, that you're providing the highest quality program you have, that your staff are building those key relationships with themselves, with the students, with the families, creating trusting relationships, and how you can share that information with your key stakeholders. Academic achievement, so what academic enrichment and positive youth development activities will you provide, and how will they complement the school day? Social emotional learning. So what are some specific things that you're going to, maybe there's been something that's been identified in your community of the SHARP survey around your middle school students that maybe you can address here, provide specific program activities and resources. And then these are program components. So they're focused on really prevention. So to add in more enrichment to your program, and you will select two components here that make the most sense that all of your program sites will focus on. This is that inclusion question where I really encourage you to review the resources provided for inclusion. When developing this, maybe connect with people in whatever local education agency you're serving. Maybe they have a specific team that really supports students with disabilities, but this is a really key component to this grant program, is providing opportunities for all students to participate, and some might have to participate in different ways. Family engagement, you can refer to Dr. Karen Mapp's work about really designing high quality, intentional family engagement that's not just come for pizza night, but taking it beyond that. What would that look like, and building those relationships so families trust you within your community and know maybe I can go to the after school staff because I don't yet feel comfortable with other people at the school, but I know the after school staff, they always greet me, they know my name, they know about my child. So considering high quality, high leverage family engagement practices. And then your partnership commitment. So this is where you'd want to align those key partnerships in the previous form here and how they're going to support that. Your timeline, what your proposed timeline is, again, trying to be practical and realistic. Travel and safety. So how do you ensure that all of the students are safe? Having preparedness plans, I think that's something that's come up over and over again as we are experiencing this global pandemic. What are the preparedness plans, and do your staff know about them? Have they run drills with the students? Those are really important to consider, especially now with the current situation in the world. And then your communication and management plan. So what it will look like for having highly trained staff, getting information out to the community so they know about this after school program, connecting with the school community, and ensuring equitable access. Professional development is a really key component of high quality after school programming. So it's a requirement of the grant that all staff working 10 hours or more will receive a minimum of 20 hours of professional development. So what is your plan for that? This can be online, this could be something you bring someone from the health department in, or getting trained on the evidence-based curriculum you'll be using. And then continuation. This is when you have the reduction, and all grantees will have a reduction in their 4th and 5th year, how you're going to work with your community partners, other federal and state programs to help coordinate programming that's still that same initial level of service, even with the reduction. This is where, if you have that free option, the sliding fee scale with the free public advertised option, you could collect and you submit approval with our office to collect program income. This is where you could use some minimum program fees here to help with continuation, but also remembering that these programs need to be accessible to everyone in the community. And then this is where you'll complete your budget. More details, the better. How did you come up with this amount for supplies? Because if you just put, well, I'm going to need about, every year, I'll probably need about $1,000 for supplies. All of this should align with your grant budget and Utah grants, with your gap analysis form. All of these budget pieces should align with that. And please be as detailed as possible. Considering how many you're going to serve, detail out the costs, consider if you're running other similar programs, what's the cost for those? The more detailed, the better. And then your project plan. So laying out your program goals, your program outcomes, what evidence-based practices you're using, what is your data collection plan, and how are you going to share this with key stakeholders? So that is the actual application. And then this is the gap analysis form. So again, this should align with your budget submitted in Utah grants. This should align with that budget question in the application. This is really showing, this is why we need this programming. We're losing some of these grants, or this foundation grant has gone away. So really justifying how this 21st century funding will fill that gap to support your program. And then this is not necessarily something you need to complete, but it's absolute and other priority point documentation. So with your absolute priority documentation, you could go onto the Utah State Board of Education Child Nutrition website. They have what we call the October survey. So rates for all of the different schools for their free and reduced lunch rates. So you could go on there. I'll send out that link. If you're a community center and you're operating not in a school site, you could pull from where you anticipate most of your students will come from and provide that information. But all of the sites, whether it's a school site or a community-based site, need to be 40% poverty rate. You can also have a letter from a school administrator on letterhead about the rate is acceptable documentation, something official. This is if you have multiple, maybe if you're a community center, and stating where you got this information. But I will send out that link to the October survey information. So that's absolute priority. That means you have to be at that rate to be eligible to apply for this funding and to potentially receive the funding. This is the competitive priority documentation. So this could be an example of your documentation for a licensed teacher supervising the program. So you could include a chart like this that really details everything that what it looks like and how it's clear that the after-school site director is a certified teacher, and they're providing that alignment with the school. They're providing that guidance about how you develop high-quality programs. So some documentation for serving students from refugee backgrounds could include a letter from a school organization stating that they are serving majority of students from refugee backgrounds. So you could have a letter on letterhead with that. And then this is the rural map. So the green counties are what we consider rural in Utah, but if you want to make the case that your community is indeed rural, you can submit some data, you could submit census data, you could submit other information demonstrating that they are rural. So now I'm going to go over to the questions. Those are the application documents. And again, if you don't have them, we'll make sure they get to you with all of these resources and the other information we discussed. And now I will go to the chat for some questions, or people can unmute themselves and ask questions as well if you would like to.
Camille, this is Sandy. Can I just make a few comments?
Absolutely.
Number one, on the continuation grant that you have to do each of the 4 years after the first one, remember that you cannot include new sites in that. They have to be the same sites that you're serving and what you're doing with sites. So be aware that if you include a new site in there, it will be disallowed and you'll have to redo it. So kind of keep that in mind. Two, the letter of intent is extremely important for us. Number one, that's so that we know how many grants are coming in and how many readers we're going to need to accommodate all of the grants. Even if you're not sure whether or not you're going to submit a grant, it's better to submit the letter of intent and then not submit a grant than to try and submit a grant letter of intent. So be aware of that. And the last thing I'd like to remind you of is that Camille is going to send you out the rubric that the reader is using. Attention to that rubric, because what happens is the readers are looking at that rubric and they're saying, in this section, we should say this and this and this and this. If you don't put that information in the section that the readers are concentrating on, then you get a lower score because if it's in there, they have to search for it. So you don't want to make your readers upset with you, because then they tend to score you more negatively. Thanks.
Thanks, Sandy. So I'll first go through the questions that were asked in the chat box and just review them, and then I can open it up to people can unmute themselves and ask their questions. So I will send out the form, the RSVP form to sign in. We can also get more information from Ben, and we will send out the copy of your slides. I think we went over the information on Utah grants, and I will follow up on successful grant applications from previous years. I'll follow up with Zach on that. So all of the programs must run for a minimum of 10 hours during the week, 32 weeks during the school year. To get the competitive priority point, you need to run 36 weeks during the school year and 15 hours per week. And so someone else asked if complete the form, the consultation form. I will talk specifically with that question with Sandy offline, and we can send out the answer to everyone. So the planning needs to completed by, if you have completed by the LEA applicant, yes. We are not accepting partner letters of support. We are only collecting letters of from the school district, the superintendent, or the school principal itself. I know it's come up that many programs have to write the same letter. They have to write it in the same format. So we are allowing for a superintendent or someone from the school district to accept that. We don't allow letters of support. And it does not impact the potentially, I think that I'm almost done because I can't talk right. It doesn't impact the possibility of getting a grant again if you have been, if you have received funding in the past. And we are using the Qualtrics system for collecting information on the mid-year, the annual report, and the quality tool. That is done in the Qualtrics system in coordination with the Utah After School Network. So before I take, I know I promise I'm going to get to anyone who wants to voice their question, but I want to remind everyone of this folder that all of you have. I don't know if you've seen it. It's been in, I sent a lot of emails lately, but it's information. We're currently, our website for 21st Century is currently undergoing a facelift. So we are trying to update everything we can with that. So I've created this folder, this public folder that everyone can see. So here's the grant application documents from last year. Not a lot has changed, but some people wanted to review that. And then here's the information about the competition. So if you're not able to find the email, you can always come here to pull it up, and I'll add the recording here. Any other information here, I'll change it here. So make sure you keep track of this folder as well. I apologize if you hear meowing in the background. I have a very vocal cat, but are there any other questions right now that I can answer that I haven't answered already? You can either type it into the chat or you can unmute yourself, and I'd love to hear your voice. So.
Hi, Camille. This is Julia Barrientos from Esperanza. I was wondering how we get access to that Google folder.
I shared it out. I sent the initial email to anyone who is a Title I director, a Title III director. But after this, I will send it out to everyone. So everyone has it who participated in this meeting has it as well.
Great. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions from our participants? So any suggestions about how to get intergenerational poverty families? I would recommend reviewing the intergenerational poverty report that's found if you click in the application. It's under the priority point, so pardon my quick scrolling. But here's the annual report. And it lays out some different strategies communities are using to try to support intergenerational families who may be experiencing intergenerational poverty. So 2 or more generations who've received public assistance. So definitely check this out for some information regarding that. You can also go to their website. I'll send a link to that in the email I send out with the slides and all the other information we've discussed, but definitely check that out for how to engage with those families more. Great question. So external assessments, this is up to the decision of the, this would be up to the decision of the applicant organization. You are required to collect student assessment data as well as distribute a teacher survey for the 21 APR reporting. But that would be up to you as an organization if you want to have an external evaluator. That is an allowable cost, or someone to develop different assessments. And then, so yes, that you can have that as part of your periodic evaluation process. Any other questions? Yes, so 6 sites is the maximum amount. All right, well, I'll stay on for a few more minutes in case you have a question, but I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming with an open mind to this transition to online meetings. I really appreciate it. Oh, it looks like we have one more question. Is it allowable for 2 partners to apply for 1 site? So are you asking if it's allowable for 2 organizations to apply for the same site, or would those partners be collaborating together? Oh, so yes, so 2 organizations, you know, a lot of us it's, you know, a small state, so many of us might work with the same schools for different capacities. So yes, if 2 organizations could apply for the same site. Yes, we do allow some contract service usage. So if you want to contract out for, I don't know, professional development or your evaluation, then yes, that would be allowable. Or like, I know a lot of programs contract out with like someone to come do enrichment programming. So come do art or come do something else. So yes, those would be allowable.
Camille, just on 2 programs serving the same site, those 2 programs need to coordinate so they're not providing the same group with the same activities, the same goals, all of that kind of stuff. That would be an overlap and not allowable.
Yeah, so I don't know if the question was more specifically related to you have two organizations in a community who have decided to file separate applications, and it would be for the same site. The hope is, potentially there would be some partnership, but maybe if there's not, I think if I'm understanding correctly, that's more of the question.
Okay.
There was some question about licensing requirements with childcare licensing. Obviously, staff need to be background checked, but we don't come under the same requirements as the Department of Workforce Services Office of Child Care with their funding. So we don't specifically have those same requirements to become DWS approved. Obviously, if you have funding from Department of Workforce Services and Office of Child Care and our funding, then yes, you would have to comply with those if you have dual funding at the same site. But yes, you can find the grant questions if you completed the RSVP form. They have been emailed out. Again, I tried to email grant directors, Title I directors, Title III directors, current 21st century grantees, people who had applied in the past, but that's where you'll find that information. So if you'll go ahead and complete that RSVP, you can get all of that information. So another question is regarding, so you would, for the renewal grant, it would only be if you had funding that was ending in 2019, 2020. Not necessarily if you had carryover funding, that's a little bit of a different circumstance, but the renewal grant is really for only funding that ended in 2019, 2020. So this school year, not necessarily if you had carryover funding. So then you wouldn't apply for the renewal grant, you would apply for the new grant. Right. Well, I don't see any questions come in, but I'll stay on for just a bit if you have questions. But again, I appreciate your patience with our online format, and I will follow up on all the information we discussed and any specific questions you had in addition. But please keep in contact with us. Here's our contact information. Sandy is also a great resource. She helps. She used to oversee this grant program, so she brings a wealth of experience. But here's our contact information. You can reach any of us by email or by phone if that's easier, or we could, have our own little video conference call. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to turn off the recording now, but I will stay online for a bit if you have other questions that you want to submit in the chat box, or if you wanted to kind of speak out. So thank you, and let us know what questions you have, and everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Hi, Camille. This is Suzanne from Youth Impact. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just have one question just to verify. We already have a 21st century grant, but we would like to try to apply for another one with a different project in mind. Is that allowable for sure?
I would say it would have to be drastically, you'd have to serve, we really would have to have a phone call about what the specifics of that would be, because you couldn't necessarily serve the same students. It would have to be very, very separate from your current project. And it might be, but you would just have to have really different focus areas, different population completely. And I'm happy to set up a phone call to discuss that.
Perfect. Let's go ahead and try to do that then. I will email you. Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thanks, Susie.